Hey guys, and welcome back to our solo series, a conversation on mental health, dealing with depression. I'm Shawn Nicholas, and with me, I have my common courtesy co-host. Next to me, I have Angelique Young.
Sorry, normally messing
Uh-oh,
stuff up, just breaking
uh-oh,
stuff,
uh-oh.
adding to the chaos, just adding to the chaos. All I wanted was all I wanted was 3 feet between me and this good old camera, so I could see myself a little better, get a little bit more in the picture. But guess not.
Ooh,
God said no. Close up it is.
hello, hello. You're here.
Hi. Hi. Yes, I'm so glad to be back. I'm so glad to be doing this. This is a fun thing, and I actually look forward to this every week now. So hopefully we can keep this going and keep helping people.
Absolutely. And Brandy is gonna join us next week to talk about
Yay.
mental health and depression as well. So that's gonna be really fun. So last week we left off some things that we didn't get to, like different types, and you had a story that you wanted to share. And I also had a story that I want to share because oftentimes dealing with depression and mental health, you kind of want to know where the beginnings were. And dude, I've never told anyone this, but when I used to play like little league football. Have I ever told you that?
No, no,
No.
surprisingly not. No.
I used to, and I played baseball. I used to always be in sports, and so I got this little body. Let me move this banner so they can see the body. Hold on, this little body, baby, addy addy. No,
Step one to getting over depression: love yourself.
yes, right. No, but I've always been in sports, and back in the day, I growing up gay. Parents really didn't have the resources as we do now, and we don't have the knowledge as we do now. So I feel like my parents are trying to put me in football to toughen me up. I fucking hated this shit, right? And not only did I hate it, some of my teammates hated it, and I remember this like one time, the reason why I hated it, because like when I started, it was like okay, like the bullying was like it was minimum. It was like what you're used to in school. But it wasn't until this one time, I think it was our first away game where we were leaving. We were leaving our field, and my mother left me there, and I was gonna ride with one of the guys. So, or one of the guys, like the parents who were like have pickup trucks, and we can all sit in the back and like ride. So there was like four of them. So I get into one of them, dude, and I don't know if you noticed about like being LGBTQ. No, back in the day, like nobody wants to associate with you, right? So I get into
Not
one.
publicly.
Yeah, absolutely, like not publicly, but I get into one of them, and everyone, dude, just got up. Actually they didn't get up. They jumped out of the fucking truck, and they were like, "We don't want to sit next to the gay kid." Dude, I was so like, I in that moment, I believe that's where it started because I never felt so alone, and I would go home and tell my parents, like, dude, I would throw tantrums. I was like, I do not want to play this sport. And I guess the feeling we were talking about last week was listening, and not only listening, being heard. I used to get so depressed and so angry that no one was listening to me because I was like, I would plead with my mom. I'm like, yo, dude, I don't want to do this anymore. It's not really good. So I played from that year, I played for 2 more years, and I used to kick these kids' ass, on the football field. I hate fighting, but sometimes you gotta defend yourself. So I think for Sigmund Freud did say, some of our mental health issues come from, our childhood. And I believe that, one of the thing is to prevent some depression issues is like to really listen to your kid, especially when they're like around 8, 10 years old. People are self-aware, they know who they are. You know what I mean? Listen, because it didn't work out well for me. So anywho's, that's the story I just kind of wanted to share, kind of how everything started in the darkness for me.
No, I love that. I love that you mentioned childhood trauma. I think a lot of the issues that we face as adults are unresolved childhood issues. People don't like to acknowledge that. People don't want to talk about that, but I mean that's literally where we develop our first set of habits that either coincide with how we deal with negativity or positivity, how we deal with things that put us in our own feelings, how you're taught to do it,
Right.
stereotypically men, for example, are always taught to be strong. They can't be weak. They see weakness as a form of, being unable to communicate or being effeminate or something to that effect. They're taught that crying, sharing your emotions is weak. So it's a correlation. So as you grow up, when you go through things, when you fall, when you hurt yourself, you'll be in pain, but you don't talk about it because you're like, I don't want people to think I'm weak. That's not your initial thing, but you've been psychologically conditioned
Conditioned. Yeah.
feel like that is a necessity. I think about when you go to the doctor and they ask you on a scale of 1 to 10 what's your pain. In all reality, you be like, this bitch is like a 25, but I'm gonna tell you it's a 5 because I wanna look tough. I wanna feel like I'm in control, right? If I
Right.
tell you it's a 5, then you have no choice but to believe it's a 5, even though it's a 10. I'm like missing my leg. It's like my toes are kissing my face, and I'm like, no, it's a 10, it's a 9, it's a 9, it's not a 10. Those kind of moments are moments that are defined by how we see pain in our life. How did you learn pain? You learned pain when you were a baby, from the time you were unable to speak. So all of that kind of builds up to the person you are. It builds up to how you respond to situations, how you handled discipline as a kid. If you were yelled at, if you were beaten, if you were locked inside a closet, not, I don't mean to laugh about it, but I mean because because it's serious.
It's
People
not
really get
funny.
locked in closets. But like as a statement of like the degrees of severity, you won't talk about something, or you won't tell on someone, you won't do something. You tend to freeze up. You think if you jump in, you're going to get beat too. You're going to get in trouble too if you try to help somebody. You don't want to get hit for trying to help somebody. So think about people who are out in public. When you hear somebody yelling at their wife or something, you're like, oh, everybody kind of turns their head. Nobody wants to get involved, but you're all there and you all hear it, right?
Right.
So these are just experiences that we learn and we're conditioned to have because that's how we are. There's so many other ones I could go into even deeper about how like people won't help somebody until somebody else jumps in. You won't start running to go help somebody in a burning building unless somebody else does it, and then your kind of instinct kicks in. That has a lot to do with how you handle situations, but how we are as a society. Society has trained us that like if it doesn't involve us, we don't jump in. So it's very, very all tied together with childhood trauma. It's very, very all tied into how we as adults even handle depression. You don't want to even tell anybody you're depressed because you're afraid of what would happen, which we talked about last week as well. So it all really does tie together.
It's really sad too, because I'm like, because now I'm seeing how children, I have a niece and nephew, Chris and McAmory. I don't really talk about them because of the show that we do, and some of the crazy people out there. But I see them, being so young now, and they're lucky to be growing up in this time where we're learning the human mind a little bit better. You know what I mean? And hopefully they have a better time at it. But it's kind of crazy that like I do see the same things that my nephew is being taught to be tough and all this other stuff, even knowing there's different types of people out there, that not everyone's a football player. Like I used to love watching football, but I didn't like particularly going out there and getting fucking hit, like that shit is not cool. Like, or
Not
or
my
any,
example when I said hit it from the back, sis.
oh wow. Yeah, right. So I mean, I can see the differences. Like they're teaching my my parents. Sorry, Sorry, that's their grandmother. My parents are teaching like Charisma, the my niece, how to be effeminate, makeup and all this stuff, and I get that, but like I think that's like. That's like all the gender roles. We're getting off topic.
We are, but it's what we do. Okay, it's kind of our thing. We kind of do this, and you know what? This is a good amount of lightheartedness before we get into our next subject anyway. So it's fine. It's fine. You can end on
Yes.
this note, and then we'll jump into the heavy stuff.
Yeah. So like, I'm just saying that like, listen to children because they really often know themselves. Like I'm hearing remember the argument we had on the show about the trans girls playing sports. And I've heard people say that how does this person know that they are trans? I'm like, well, I knew I was gay from the get. And I knew I didn't like playing football as well. So listen. All
I
right.
mean,
And go
there's
ahead.
yeah, we'll go into that another time. Well, because we can keep going. There's like a whole lot that deals with that. Like it's all relative. Like, But yes, I do agree. You should listen to your children to some extent. There are feelings that they have, and there's emotions that they're dealing with, and they need to have them pass, whether it's a passing phase or it's here long term to start and stop. And you won't know what it is until you listen. So definitely listen.
Absolutely. So last week you left off, you were saying that you were telling me backstage that you had a story about how you once tried to take your own life, which I was very surprised. I mean, I was very surprised to hear that because you're a good friend of mine now, and I can't imagine a world without Angie in here, Angel
Yeah.
Face. I can't imagine a world without
No,
you.
yeah.
So, I'm gonna ask you to open that up a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I This story is something that when it happened, it was definitely something I put on the back burner. I didn't want to talk about. I didn't want to revisit it. I didn't, you kind of think you have to put it behind you and move forward. But a part of moving forward sometimes means going through it and talking about it. You can't really be okay with something if you can't talk about it, right? So in my life, I was in my 20s at the time. It was I can't remember exactly what year of my life it was at this point, but it was when I was in my 20s, and I was in a relationship that was not conducive to my mental health. I was with a very narcissistic person and a very manipulative person. He At the time of our relationship, he was very self-centered, and uh he kind of made comments and did things, and I fed into it emotionally, being a giver, and I kind of allowed it to be more than it was. And then I
Hmm.
had friends in my life who did not really um appreciate or understand who I was or what I was going through, and they kind of all looked at me as this person um who was capable of doing anything. I was like the person who no obstacle was too hard, no thing could stand in my way. I was the ball of sunshine. I'm the person who gets over everything, you know? Um
Yeah.
so in my life at that point in time, I was deeply wounded internally. I was like I had
Hmm.
so many failed things go on in my life at that time. I had failed relationships. I was in the process of being an event planner. I was out of school. I was like trying to secure, the bag at a corporate job, I was trying to still do shows. I was doing so much, trying to find myself, trying to find a reason to go on and to do what was next kind of deal. And I remember the instance of when it happened. It was a night we went out drinking. Like I said, I was having problems in my relationship, and my partner at the time liked to undermine me or to make me feel insignificant, despite how well known I was and despite my popularity. He Even if they didn't do it intentionally, it was kind of like if I was having a good night and a highlighted moment, this group of people that I was with, they were like bringing me down to their level, to their depression, to their upset.
They knew
And
what they were doing.
right,
I
and
was
so
gonna
at
say
that
that.
point
Sorry.
right, and at that point in time, I was just kind of, like, so willing and so giving to make them happy. I didn't care about my own happiness, so over time, it just really disintegrated to the point where this night came along, and I just kind of was like I felt my relationship ending. I knew that it wasn't gonna go anywhere. I knew it was tumultuous. I knew that this person didn't love me the way they said they did, and, my very, very close friend at the time, who I considered like a family member, they were also in a place where they were kind of like, meh, like who you like, it is what it is. Like, this is you, this is always what you do, da 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 da. And hey, and I was just at this point where I literally needed somebody. So I remember, and even at the time, my best friend didn't really come in, and he didn't pay me any attention. He didn't heed my warnings. I kept saying I don't feel well, I don't like how I feel, I'm not happy, all these things. And everybody's telling me, like, just suck it up, deal with it, it's fine. And so this night we're walking home, I decided to call one of my other best friends. I was like, I need somebody who's going to listen to me. And I called this person, and I'm like, hey, listen, this is how I'm feeling. Like, I'm broken. I'm tired. I'm distraught, and I just can't deal with it anymore. I don't know. And they're like, oh, they kind of blew it off. They were like, oh, it's no big deal. You'll figure it
Yeah.
out. You always do. Like, they were like in a push off kind of manner, not like in a I love you, let me help you manner, but in a very, oh, you'll be fine. You always are fine. Go to bed, wake up in the morning, and you'll deal with it. You'll figure it out. Like, that's pretty much what they told me.
Right.
And I was very upset. And I was like, why are you saying this to me? I'm telling you, like, I literally, like, don't feel like I can go on. I don't feel like I should go on. I was like, the world would just be better without me. I was very much in that mindset and that state of mind. My world had like really just completely impacted on itself. And
Mm-hmm.
this person just continued to say these things. And I was just like, you know what? I'm done with this conversation. Remember that those are the words you chose to say to me. I was like, those are your last words to me. You telling me I'm not important enough to talk to. You don't have time for this. Like you make not making me an option despite knowing you longer than anybody else I know, despite being in each other's lives for as long as we have been, this is what you're telling me. I was like, all right, cool. Peace out. Love you. Remember that because that's the last time I'm going to tell you. And I remember walking up the stairs to my apartment and going inside and thinking to myself, I mean, I could tell you, like, I don't, this might be graphic. I'm sorry for anybody, but I remember thinking to myself, I can't use a knife because they'll just call the ambulance and it'll just, it'll come, they'll stitch me back up. It won't be anything. I was like, can't hang myself anywhere though, then I'll have to deal with all that. Like I was like thinking, oh my God, if I fail, I'll fucking have a marker around my neck. I was like, definitely don't want that. I was like, what else could I do? And I had been seeing a counselor at the time. I had been in therapy. And I was just like I said, I was just this extremely low point. And I had a whole bottle of Xanax and I was like, you know what, I could do this. This would be good. This would just put me to sleep and I just want to wake up. So it was like,
Mm-hmm.
I think it was like a pill bottle with like over 45 pills or something like that. And I just took the whole thing. I literally put every pill in my mouth and chugged a cup of water and was like, let's go. Like it was one part being pissed at the person who told me that I wouldn't do it, that I couldn't do it, that I shouldn't do it and not giving a fuck about me. And then it was the other part about it being the fact that I was like, that's how I feel. I was like, y'all just don't care. If it was you, if the shoe was on the other foot, I would have gotten my car, I would have driven to you. We didn't have Uber at the time. So I would have done what I had to do. I would have stayed on the phone with you. I would have comforted you. But I'm in a place with the four best people in my life at the time, the people who I tell everything to, the people who I trust with my most deepest, darkest secrets. I'm here with you, and none of you give a shit about how I feel. Despite what's going on in your life, I've always put my shit to the side. I was like, no, you don't care about me when I'm living. You're not gonna miss me when I'm gone. So I did this in this dark place. And so uh my sister walked into the room at that time and she saw me and she was upset and she was like, oh, like she's like, holy shit, like, what are you doing? And I was like, it's okay, you wanted this, right? This is what you wanted. You didn't want me there, whatever. I remember our last conversation like it was yesterday. Like I remember this. I remember my body feeling like weightless. I remember going through the whole situation and being like, this is what you wanted. That's all. And I was like, just let it happen. Just don't worry about it. Just let it happen. And then you never have to worry about it. You don't have to worry about me or my problems or my feelings or anything else. And, at that point in time, everybody's regret kind of comes up and they're like, no, that's not what I meant. I didn't need da 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 da. And I'm like, it's too late. Don't say it now, like whatever. But I passed out at that point and I remember little bits and pieces, but she tried to like make me throw up, but her fingers were too small. So eventually the irony of the whole situation is the one person that I wanted to get away from the most ended up being the person who saved my life. My ex had to pick me up and put me in the shower and he put his fingers down my mouth to make me throw up because his fingers were long enough to do it. And so I threw up mostly everything minus a little bit that had already been digested. And then um, I slept it off. I literally went in bed and I didn't move from the position until the next morning. And when I woke up, my room was surrounded by people that I know. I was like surrounded by like, I want to say my six best friends, we'll say. And they all were just kind of looking, like not really knowing what was going on, not really understanding what happened or how it got to that point. And it's so funny how everybody in the room kind of wanted the answer to be something other than themselves. Like, not that anyone's to blame. Obviously, clearly, I am an adult and I take full responsibility for my actions and what I did. I don't blame anybody in particular. But in that moment, I was like, I was getting away from something, and the only thing I was getting away from was from you guys. I was already away from my family. I was already away from all these other things. So like, there's no point. I don't need this. You know what I mean? And so I remember thinking, fuck, well, this sucks, but this isn't the worst kind of suck. I immediately packed a bag for a drag show that I had to do, went and got and did the show, did it high as a kite because I was still on the Xanax.
Xanax.
And after that, I literally got in a car with my friends and I made them take me home to my mom. I spent 2 days there with her before I drove back to Pittsburgh, I mean, I called my mom and told her I was coming. I told her what I did. I was like, I'm at rock bottom. I did something I thought I would never do, dealing with everything. And so the 2 days that I took to kind of consolidate my actions and really think about what happened, and um, kind of put myself in that position of being like, what is this about? Why am I so miserable? Why am I so unhappy that I would think that this was the answer? You know, and going home was wonderful. I was greeted by my entire family, who is wonderful at not talking about stuff, but being there for you. there's no there's no conversation, but it's a lot of physical bodies in the room, making
Mm-hmm.
sure you're smiling or you're happy in a way, not a forceful way, you know. Um, so I thank them for that on a constant basis. But that was a moment when I realized, like, I could have gave this up. This could have been, no longer my thing. So it was that kind of made me
So,
realize what I did.
so can I ask you, like, how old were you when this occurred?
Um, let's see, I moved here when I was 27. So I want to say I was 25. I think I was 25, maybe 26, midlife crisis type shit, I guess. um, no, but at that point in time, like, I didn't really understand what it was that put me in that position. I couldn't fathom because I didn't want to see, right?
Mm-hmm.
So at that point in my life, I
Well, I
was
mean, maybe not want to see. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but maybe
yeah.
not didn't want to see. But I feel like everybody, as you're telling the story, no one did anyone call did anyone call like the National Suicide Prevention Hotline? Even anyone try to reach out to give you help?
Oh God.
Because I feel like we can read about things, but you don't know a situation until you're in it. So I mean, it's
Yeah,
just I
no,
don't
no
think that
one
you
called
knew.
that, no one called the ambulance, nobody called anything. I had a one friend who, he is amazing. When he got there, he was like, "Why didn't y'all call the ambulance? Why did you not call the police? Why is this bitch still in her bed? Like,
Right,
why is she
right.
packing a bag to go to work right now? Like, what the fuck is on your brain?" And then, like, there was an immediate, "Why didn't you call me? Like, you have all these people you could have called. You should have called me first. Shouldn't have been anybody else. I should have been the person you called." And that was like a light that went off in my head too. I was like, I didn't even think about that person at that time. Like, probably because that person would have actually talked me out of it. That person would have definitely talked me off the ledge, would have probably came home and Diamond in the Players Club cleared the whole fucking room, right? She would have came in and
Yeah.
talked me out. One of my greatest friends, and
You could
that
have been you could have been dead. Like, I'm sorry, I'm like that friend because that something happened to a friend of mine. And I'm like, why didn't anyone fucking call me? Because you people, let me not get upset, but people sometimes they'll say they're your friends. Like, let's say you go out and have a couple of drinks, they'll say they're your friends, but when it comes down to it, they're not there or
Mhm.
not making the right decisions. Because that kind of made me mad. I'm like, no one called the ambulance, no one tried to get you any medical help, no one even tried to get you like call the National Suicide Prevention Hotline, which I'm pretty sure that was out back then. This is not a new thing. So like I
Yeah,
don't.
no, it wasn't as known as it is now. It wasn't as easily available or accessible as it is right now. Like, the world wasn't on that. We've come a long way in 10 years.
Yeah.
But the the thing about it is that a lot of times in the gay community and in the Black community and in both the Black and gay community, there's a part of everybody that is scared of what comes next from that. You put somebody in there and you go, and then that's detrimental to somebody's health. You get 302. You don't just spend 72 hours. You could spend a week, a month. You don't know what's going to happen. And nobody was ready to take over the responsibilities of my things. Like, nobody was committed to that much. I think you have to be willing to think about all of that, when you're committing somebody. You have to think about everything all the different pieces of the puzzle that move when you remove somebody from their own life. So in that whole thing, I learned a lot about myself and what I was going through, and being honest with myself about my situation. A lot of that stemmed from me being trans and not admitting it, lying to myself, denial, about my transition at that time. I did shows, but I didn't dress. I didn't live my life. I wasn't on that verge. So yeah, it would have been about it's about 2011, 2012, sometime around that time. Yeah. because I moved here in 2014. So yeah, so at that point in time, I hadn't even had the job that that gave me that opportunity to be myself yet. I was just right there. I couldn't imagine, everything that I needed to happen in my life happened after this moment. And I can't tell you what happened first. I can't tell you if it's the chicken or the egg. I can't tell you if I needed to have that moment to realize everything, or if everything was already coming and I just jumped the gun and I was just, beyond my point. But the reality is that in that attempt, coming out of that, that was I don't recommend it for anyone. I prefer to go see a therapist and go talk about
Yeah.
your. I really do. But in that moment, it was like a light switch went off. It was like, I was like, oh my God, I'm being an idiot. Like, how could I possibly have thought that my life would be better without me in it? How could I have possibly thought that this was the proper action? How could I have let other people's influences be that strong in my life? Because at the end of the day, nobody can make me do anything I don't want to do, and nobody can make me feel the way I don't want to feel. So how did I allow all of these voices to have more control over my actions than myself? I wasn't worried about me when I did that. I wasn't thinking about me when I did that. I was thinking about just the easy way of ending all these friendships without having to say, you're a fucking shitty person, I need you out of my life.
It sounds like it's like you wanted to hurt them in the most. They hurt you very much, and then you wanted to hurt them the most possible way. I mean, that's the only thing I could think of.
It's not necessarily that. It's not about hurting them. It wasn't about causing them pain. It was about severing the tie. It was
Right.
about ending it. And for lack of a better term, it was about truly just I needed a bomb to go off in the room so that I could be free. And in my head, with the use of alcohol and with the feelings I was feeling, I let them guide me down this road, knowing damn well that there's 700 other options that I could take. But in that same hand, it was great because when I came back from that, I was like, you are no good for me. In my darkest time, in my worst place, you were selfish, you were self-indulgent, you were completely and utterly the opposite of who I am for you. And in a moment where you could have given me a little bit, you continued to take. Even when I was in my recovery, these people still were taking from me. And I was like, I have to go. I cannot be in this situation. I can't stay here. Because you took my worst instance and made it about you. You still missed the whole point of the conversation, right? Um, and it doesn't take a lot. Yes, thank you, Rico. Everyone can relate, if you simply try to understand where they're coming from. And then all that takes is what we talked about: listening and actually hearing. There's a difference between listening and hearing. You can listen to somebody, but hearing takes understanding. Hearing takes the moment that you need to truly take the information and process it. And you don't have to know the answer. It is much more, it's much more effective for you to say, wow, I hear that. I don't know what to tell you, but damn, I hear what you're going through, and I can't imagine what that feels like, but it's got to be crazy. Like, but I'm here for you. And whatever it is you're going through, I don't know what it is, but I'll go through it with you. That is more effective than coming to me with an actual answer of how to solve my problem.
Yeah.
Hearing that you hurt me and I'm hurting, and you're saying you're sorry, is more effective than trying to fix what's broken.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So that would have been a great solution, but that's not what I got. So what I got was me figuring my shit out and being like, I can't fuck with y'all. I gotta go. Let me pack my shit and move to Florida.
Yeah, because Rico just said he sent us love, and your friend Melissa Lamb, she says, "My queen." I agree with her. My queen, being open and real and vulnerable. So much respect. Thank you for sharing your story, and I thank you as well. And Rico says you wanted to create a new space. Like that's. Do you kind of agree with that, or like, that's
Oh,
what kind of happened
absolutely.
after you left?
It's almost like leveling the playing field. Because after that, like I said, I didn't want to be around those people anymore. I wanted to be as far away as possible. Like it was like there was enough, but exactly what I didn't want to happen happened. I fought with people. I got into arguments. I literally had to push people away because they didn't get it. Like, it's like It's like having leeches on you. You're like, no, bitch, I understand that you're gonna fall off when you're fat, but I need you off right now. I can't wait for you to get fat off of me anymore. Like you gotta time to cut off the the drunk person at the bar. Like it's time to go. You gotta get out. You ain't got to get home, but you got to get the fuck out. Like but that's what it was. It was very much that. It's creating that new space. I needed people who were gonna be positive towards me, who are gonna help uplift me and keep me in good spirits and help me get through what the next step was. I had people who selfishly didn't want me to transition because they preferred me as a man or wanted to have babies with me or all these different things rather than thinking about me and how I feel in my own skin. People telling me like, "Oh, don't do that. That's for, the stigma we had back then that we
Oh
still have
yes.
for trans women where they're only allowed to be prostitutes, drag queens, escorts, or strippers. Like all of our jobs are literally illegal. Like we can't
Right.
get a W-2 for any of those. Like nobody's catching a paycheck or insurance for those jobs. Like that's what we're thought of as. And in that community, in that city that I was in, like that's all I was seen as. I couldn't possibly be more. Not to them anyway. Getting a job and working at a Macy's and being a counter manager and doing makeup was like a highlight. Like people couldn't believe it. They couldn't believe that I got that job because I had the education to get it. I didn't even know I could get that job, right? And then
Hmm.
as I've gone through life, I've achieved so many more things and I've expanded my universe so much more. And that's been a huge part of how I get through it. I have to remember like the person that I've become, what I present on the outside is not a representation of my mind, it's a representation of my heart and soul. My mind it has transferred with me from start to finish. It's never going to leave my body, right? No one's going to take my brain out.
Hmm.
Hopefully, pray to Jesus, but like but that is a key component in realization. Like you have to stop and look at what you have. I think a lot of people run through life with their head down and kind of forget to look back at their accomplishments, to forget how many people you've touched, how many lives you've changed, how many people are happy you're here, who love to see your smile, who love your presence, your warm embrace, the advice you give, the love you give. You know, we don't think about that. Not when you're in a depressed state, not when your mind is at the point of no return, not when we have truly found ourselves in broken places.
Yeah, and the one thing is like when I told that story, the reason why I told the story before when we started this episode, I see you're reading what he said. The reason why I started the show before is like, well, sorry, I shared the story before about telling my parents and pleading with them, like, please listen. I said, listen to your children, listen to everyone. People really listen, people talk. But let me read what Rico is saying to us.
Yeah.
The harsh truth is, we expect things from people that we ought to provide ourselves. We went through your version, Queen. It sounds like part of your life's lesson is developing your own sense of self identity and validating it yourself and showing those around you how to do it. This is a lonely walk, but it's something your soul signed up for before you came to this world. The
Hmm.
most powerful thing one can do is become aware of their current position and acting accordingly. Take full responsibility. Is there more?
Yeah. I don't.
Oh, is
It
it?
doesn't show
I
more
can't.
than that.
Yeah, it won't give.
It won't
It
show
won't
more.
give me more. It won't give me more.
I'll have to go back and check it. But no, I agree with this 100%. This is a part of the journey for like your awakening and your thing. And like I said, unfortunately, I had to go through it the hard way, but a lot of people could totally go through this so much easier by talking about your situation. And I think the reason why I love therapy is because it's a third party, non-biased person. This person has no weight in your life. This person can't decide if you go left or right, or if you go out for dinner, if you stay in and watch Netflix. They don't have that power. This person can truly digest the information you're giving and give you a response that's unbiased, that's truly just giving of your situation and what you need. So I wish that I had that at the time. At the time, I was seeing counseling for a completely different reason, and I wasn't being honest. I was in that room and I was telling them anything but what was bothering me, and I was like, "That's the reason why I didn't get the result I needed, or get the help I wanted, because I wasn't being truthful. I wasn't being honest at that time." So 100% what you're saying, I agree. It can be a lonely walk, but it does not have to
Have to
be.
be.
It does not have to be. If you choose to do that walk alone, that is a choice. But you do not have to do that walk alone. But I do say it's important to find people in your life that are that are conducive to your happiness. Now, I've talked about happiness being a wave. Um, you know, a wave, I've talked about it being, an emotion that is meant to be felt temporarily. There is no such thing as continued happiness. It never it there's no way to feel that emotion 24/7. It comes in waves, it comes in pieces, you know. But in that same hand, uh you have to make those decisions on your own. I do agree with that. That is something that you are completely in charge of. Even with help or guidance or with somebody to validate, you know, your validation. It's like checking your work and then having someone else check it to make sure you have all the right correct spellings. You still have
Uh-huh.
to do the work and you still have to check it. You know what I mean? If somebody else misses it and you submit it, it's still your fault because you're the one who's supposed to check it, right? So I get what you mean in the sense of like being alone or being by yourself. At the end of the day, it does really come down to you. But, the beauty of what I've learned and what I've experienced is that I went through that alone and now I'm never alone. Now I know who I can be around and who I can trust with my feelings and my emotions and who I can lean on. I won't say rely because rely is a completely different vibe, but the lean, somebody that if I need somebody to help, just nudge me back on the right track or to help me stay on the proper mental part.
You know who to go
I have
to.
that. Yeah, I have those people. I don't have a person. I have people. I put my trust into people because I refuse to believe that I'm that one of a kind in the world. I refuse to believe that I'm the only
I
person
just
who vibes that way.
I just sent Rico a invite if he can join us because I didn't understand the last comment they said. He says alone equals all one, and I'm thinking,
Like everyone is one. Like whether you're alone or everyone at once. Is how I took it. It's like
oh,
it's all for one type thing.
yeah. Well, I mean,
That's how I took it.
so like I said, like your entire story is like it's a one of listening. Listening to yourself and honesty, being honest with yourself and who you are, and being comfortable in acceptance. Like I said, I told that story earlier before we came into your story because I knew that was the biggest lesson for pretty much a lot of things. We sit down and listen and actually hear people because I remember my friend Mike when he committed suicide, I knew he was there. I knew he was at risk, you know, but being 21, or sorry, I was 22, you're thinking, oh, I've seen Degrassi, The Next Generation, the one with Drake. Oh, I've seen that so many times. I know I can handle this. But you cannot handle those things alone. It takes a village, just like you have a village keeping you up in your happiness. It takes a village, and I wish I had called someone back then, but it just seems that some people are very apathetic, and our country's very apathetic. And I read somewhere that it's natural that we have our selfishness, but sometimes if you really listen, you hear what people want and what they need, because if you were talking to me, Ange, I would have definitely listened to you. I would have definitely gotten you the help you needed. And, I wouldn't let you take all these. Are you frozen?
No, 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 no. I was into it. I'm hearing it.
So I
Being a
wouldn't let
different
that I wouldn't
person
let that
now
happen. I know you're a
it's
different person
completely
now, but
different. But
I just
I've come to terms with what happens, and I don't let it define me either. I think a lot of people get lost in that moment as well, where
yeah.
something like this happens to them in their life, and they fear people. You fear telling people, you fear expressing yourself, you fear like being who you are because you don't want that negative part of it. You don't want to do that. Like I said, I went years without telling my story. I literally pretended like it didn't happen. And then I started telling it and I started realizing how many people around me felt the way I felt trapped, felt like they couldn't speak, felt like they couldn't breathe, felt like they couldn't express themselves for fear of loss or hatred or disservice or being told it's nothing or pushed under the carpet, made to feel smaller than they are. you know um I tell everyone, if you feel like you're talking to someone, if you go to someone and they dismiss you or they dismiss your feelings, go to someone else. And remember that that person dismissed you at a time of need. And it doesn't matter if it was accidental, maybe it was partial. Remember, you can forgive, but you can't forget, because when you are back in that place again, you're going to need somebody who can help you feel good about how you're handling your situation. that's why I preach therapy to people. That's why I preach coping mechanisms. That's why I preach all kinds of different things, because everybody's different, and what works for me may not work for you. But if you talk to me, at least you know somebody knows what you're going through, and you know that they have some solutions possible for you. You know what I mean? Which is why I
Right.
got into psychology so deeply, why I got into therapy so deeply, and the different forms of it, and how each one can help someone differently. It's super, super important to understand that, like, there are things that you cannot handle by yourself. You
Excuse me.
just can't possibly handle it alone. And even if you're the toughest, baddest, most kick-ass person in the world, there's gonna be something you're gonna go through that you're gonna need help. You're gonna need somebody to help guide you through it.
Let me read Rico's comment before we.
We are taught to be what is acceptable. It is a very religious way to live. This surpasses our human spirit. I'm
The
a big fan of
suppresses.
suppresses. Sorry, suppresses our human spirit. I'm a big fan of taking responsibility for our own thoughts and feelings. Oh, absolutely, yeah,
Yeah.
I got it. So I was right for what I said. Yeah, no, definitely. Oh yeah, 100%. Like it's. Oh
It
yes,
is a
that is.
scary notion to accept that we are the
Because from
primary.
the time you're born, society teaches you otherwise. So yeah,
Yes. Like
100%.
there's some outside forces, like some destiny controlling your life. Like you are a part of your own happiness. Like the last week I gave no, the week before last, I gave some like tips on how to keep yourself up because no one else can do that but you know, like only you know, you're the only person that knows what's bothering you, what's helping you. Like when I was in the closet, like it was, dude, I used to live a totally, I was gonna tell the story. I used to live like a totally different life. Like I wasn't like when I would come home, I would be like very quiet and like not gay, but just like not obvious about it. Like I wasn't like going, oh yeah, girlfriend, mm-hmm. Yes, sis, I hear you. I was just really wouldn't talk. Like I would be in
Yeah,
like I would
there's a
be
fine line. You kind of do things. I remember I was the same way when I was starting with the idea of being a woman. I would go and I would get dressed up, and they'd be like, "Why are you getting dressed up? You don't have a show tonight." And I'd be like, "Oh, I just wanna go to the bar, and I wanna like promote myself. I just want people to see me." And I made excuse after excuse after excuse, but the reality was, bitch, I just like dressing. I like being a woman. I like going out in little booty shorts and a crop top and have my little wig on. I like going out with a little bit of makeup or a lot of makeup and traveling the city and doing things. I thought that was my only way out. I thought that was my outlet. I can't tell you how many times I came home and I would have to take off my hip pads and my makeup and I would cry. I had my bra stuffed. I hated going out with my homegirls and when my boobs weren't mine, and I'd have them stuffed. And a man goes to fill you up and he's feeling your socks and rice, or your foam cuppers or your chicken cutlets. Like it was so devastating to my mental, especially when you're dating someone and they don't understand. And they're very negative towards you dressing up, and they're like, "Oh, I don't like you dressed up. I like you as a man. Be a man. Dress up. Put on some clothes. Put on this. Put on that." Your brain is like, "What?" Like at first you think great things about it, right? Because
mhm.
it's you don't realize that somebody's putting a leash on you. It's like when you go and you give your dog one of those nice shiny bling bling collars, and it's got all this stuff, and you're doing it, and they don't understand that that's your way of controlling them. That's your way of keeping them where you want them and how you want them, and letting everybody know that they belong to you. That's what you do when you're in a relationship and you tell someone how to dress or how to wear their hair. You
It's
can dress up
toxic.
nicely and say, "Oh, I love it when your hair is straight," or "Oh, I love it when your hair is curly," or "Oh, I love it."
Oh,
But
I
what
love it
you're
when you
doing,
go to the gym.
yeah, I love it when your body is. I love your abs. I love keep them just like this. Don't move. Like I love your butt like that. Don't lose no weight. You're literally controlling how someone reacts, and you're doing it subliminally. You're giving them little notions or little hints as to what you want, and you're not in control of that.
Right.
If that's who they want to be, you have to be okay with that, because when you get in a relationship, you got to love the person for better or worse, for whatever they choose to be. I mean, if it's not your cup of tea, then maybe it's time to separate. That's
Yeah,
the reality, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that, but you got to be willing to accept it for what it is. The second you start changing little things and twisting and turning it, it turns into something else. And that could be very, very, imagine, think about you and your situation, like how you felt like you couldn't, and everybody feels like Elsa, right? Conceal, don't feel. I fucking love Disney. They send you all the messages you ever needed in your
I'm
life
dead.
for the rest of your life. But it's very that you relate to that, because you're like, fuck, I can't show everybody who I really am, because for fear, people are gonna be afraid of me. People won't talk to me. People won't like me. People won't want to be next to me. People are going to hop out the car when I get in. It's a relative. It's super, super relative. Like that really affects you on your mental. You feel like you can't be yourself. So you dim your light
For
every
someone
day
else's.
until you have no more light. And
So
when
let
your
me
light is left out, that's how you end up in places like this.
Let me read this from Nesha Berry. Nesha says, I love this. And
Oh,
Nesha, I love you. Rico says, well said about no leashes. Because
yeah, fuck
we don't
leash.
want, try to find out like those toxic
How would
relationships
you
because that
find
can
a way to
keep you
be
in
more
depression.
open?
Oh, says Shawn, inquiring minds wants to know, how did you find your way to being more open with your personality and individuality?
Yes. Oh, yes. Please do tell.
That's an
Do tell,
episode.
sis. That's huh?
That's an entire episode. But you know what? It's funny enough. I was thinking about this last night. Um, hmm, how can I answer that question all in one turn? I can't. I started watching shows that had people with me in it, and like Degrassi. I started to deviate from the things that I was taught as a kid. Like I didn't really like going to church, my church, because they were judging gays, lesbians, women, anything. So I stopped doing that. I stopped doing the things that growing up that made me feel uncomfortable or something I didn't like playing football. Like when I got to high school, I said, when I get to high school, I'm not fucking doing this anymore. Part of it is about standing up and loving who you are. You have to find your voice somewhere. And after that, I started acting. I found a voice there. And after that, I moved to New York City. And there you have to learn how to live your life and speak up for yourself. I started to not worry about other people, how they saw me. I wanted to
Big
just
on
be me.
individuality. Yeah, it's super big on individuality. You gotta be, you have, in order to stand out, you gotta be different. You can't be
Yeah,
like
and but
yourself.
not only being different, you have to be okay and accepting that. I think one day when I was 20 years old, I accepted that I'm gay. I'm not the most normal person ever. Sometimes I talk to myself, but I found the things that I also loved about myself, and I'm like, I'm gonna not change a thing about who I am, and I'm gonna love it. So a lot of those things like how to be more open with your personality and individuality, you have to kind of be honest with yourself, like Angelique when she realized, she's trans. She's not this, gay man, she's trans. So you have to just one day wake up and it's do it for you, basically. You are in control of your own life. I read a lot of books on sociology, psychology, trying to figure out why I'm gay, sexuality,
That's a
and
rabbit
it
hole.
and and it all told me the same thing that there's nothing wrong with you. So there's nothing wrong with who anyone is. You have to accept it. And if some people don't accept you, you go somewhere where they will accept you. Just like Angelique said, I moved, and as soon as I moved, I have a different life, and people are, you're loving it. I moved to New York, and bitches love my ass. Like, shit,
Hmm.
I used to work at this one place, Mickey's. They used to love me working there, but I was trouble. I'm
You trouble,
trouble.
I couldn't imagine.
Mhm. I can't help it. But I used to come in like an hour late and I'm gonna get fired. I worked there for 3 years and that went on for a while. Never got fired, but that place, that Mickey's and everyone that worked there, the managers and stuff, I saw they actually gave a shit about me. Go and my neighbor Isabel, right? This guy was talking shit about me in Spanish. And I'm telling her a story like we're just talking now, and she's just looking at my ass. She's just like, no, she's looking at me mad. And I'm like, why is she mad? Usually she is kind of mad. Then she goes, hold on, Shawn. And she just goes in on these three dudes. She was 4 months pregnant. She's like, yo, you're gonna talk about my friend in Spanish? He can't understand you. Say the shit in English, bitch. And yeah, and she's like, they're like, oh, we're not talking to you. She's like, yeah, but now I'm talking to you. And they were going into it. And just from that moment, I'm like, this is the place for me. Because I'll be honest, down in Florida, that shit happens. Some of these bitches in St. Pete will let you get your ass whooped or be like, do the whole like,
Yeah, be like, I don't know what's
mm,
going on. Oh man.
that's
No,
fucked up. You got to
yeah,
realize who your real friends are. Realize who has that love for you. Be honest. If that person, like when they take you home and they're asking for all this stuff, like my friend Janae, she drives me home from work. I try to give her money. She refuses that shit. She's like, "You're my friend. I want to make sure you're okay." And driving you home, I almost started crying.
mhm.
Driving you home, at night, to make sure that you're safe, that's fine. So the biggest thing about answering that question, I hope it's a lot, is
Mhm.
just being honest with yourself and finding those people that accept you as much as you accept yourself. And it
Exactly.
has to start
It
with
has
you.
to, but the train don't work if you don't love and accept yourself.
Yeah.
If you're not fully aware of that, you know. But you said something really great. Last night
Oh, I did.
my team had Trent Shelton come in and talk to us, and thanks to my mentor, she brought Trent Shelton in to come answer some Q&As and stuff like that. And he
Uh-huh.
said something really, really amazing that resonates with me, that talks about like how our transplanting ourselves to an environment that's more conducive to us has really helped us both find ourselves and be more individuals. He said that, you know, be careful where you plant your seeds, because you know the soil is super important to the growth of your seed. You know, a seed planted in the wrong soil will never grow. So
Right.
I really agree with that on so many levels, because in that moment, me first transplanting myself to Pittsburgh and then to Florida, every time I transplant myself to a new area, I make new friends, I find new people, and I find a community each time that really supports my growth, both mentally, spiritually, socially. And you can kind of see where the bad ones are and where the good ones are. And sometimes you know, you have to kind of experiment with that a little bit before you find the good hardcore ones, right? You know, I think about how there's a saying that in your life you'll only have, in your entire life, from the time you're born to the time you die, you only have 5 real best friends, or 5 real, like, 100% friends in your life that are like best friends. Um, and I think about how many people I've met in this world and how many people I thought were like my ride or dies. I thought they would be with me forever, and how so many of them are no longer in my life, or no longer in my picture, or no longer in the spot they once held, you know, because of whatever. So I think about that, and I think about how mentally challenging that is. You know, you dedicate your time to people and you put all this effort into them, and you really hope that they are the ones that get you through it. And 9 out of 10 times you start to realize that you're the one pulling the fucking strings. You're dragging everybody through the mud to keep them with you, and they're
Right.
like screaming to run the other way, you know. But yeah, he talked about that, and he talked about something called the legendary day. Everybody thinks the legendary day is the day that you succeed, the day you win, right? And the day you get everything right. And he called it out as a legendary day is not based on that. Legendary day is based on um is not wait, is not caving to your silent battles. That's a legendary day. So if you're not caving to your silent battles, if you're getting out of bed and you're talking to people and you're up and you're walking and you're expressing yourself and you're not giving up on yourself and you're not submitting to the obstacles in your life, or the feelings of your life, or the depression in your life, you know, those are days to be excited about. Those are days to look forward to. Those are days
Oh, I like that.
to really, like, you know, you made it through the day. You thought it was the worst day ever, right? Up until now, you had never experienced something so bad, but you went to bed and you woke up, and that is truly the blessing. You have another
Legendary
shot at a
day.
great day.
You know, like that's honestly the greatest piece of advice, because like literally those are the times, like Rico's question, how did you figure out this stuff and how are you dealing with depression, is thinking about those times when like when oh, I remember the first time I worked a RuPaul's Drag Race party up in Hell's Kitchen. I didn't know how much these gay men loved RuPaul. Like I'm not like that. You know what I mean? Like I wasn't really watching. I'm gonna read that in a minute. Oh shit, I forgot what I was gonna say. Give me back to me. Give it back to me. Legendary day. So literally, there's all these fucking people. I gotta show you a picture of this. I wish I had it ready. All these people were like surrounding the bar, the entire restaurant. It was so packed. And it was my first time dealing with a situation like that. And I almost panicked. I said, no, fuck this. It's morphin' time, bitch. Terra, Terra fucking Dactyl, or like Tyrannosaurus, you know. I just went in and I went in with a positive attitude. I'm like, no, Shawn, you are enough. A teacher taught me always believe when you're auditioning for something that you are enough for this. It's you. Let me read this from Rico real fast, and we're gonna end this before because
Mhm.
I got.
Yeah, we got into it. Thank you so much. Like, this is so great. We gotta have Rico come on. I love this. Like,
Yeah.
we go on these tangents. I feel like this is why we're lovely. We just vibe so well off of each other, and the energy is just so good. I love it.
Perfect time.
But what do
He
you say?
says, "Thank you for that answer, Shawn. Well said, and love them legendary day concept. As a fan of psychology, I find it fascinating that society has made such a private matter, like a person's sexuality, such a public concern. It causes people to handle a personal evolution in such a public way. Not a bad thing, but definitely in challenging circumstances. I really want to talk about that.
Yeah, that's
Um,
it. I know he put that, and I was like, oh my god. I was like, for real. Like, no, that is so like, oh, I hate that. I hate that. But you know, in the same hand, it's almost like forcing people to evolve or accept their situation. You know. Yeah. So like I said, I
Absolutely.
agree. It's not a bad thing, but it definitely adds unnecessary challenges. I
I'm
can send you my natal chart. I have it.
Wait, bitch. I see
Because
what you're
I'm
trying to
big on
do.
it too. I can definitely send you mine.
Me too.
I wish I had it when I was younger. Now that I'm an adult and have it, I'm like, well, this would have helped me like 20 years ago. But now it's not so much because I get everything on there. But I could definitely send it to you. I literally have it saved in my phone right now.
And you know what? Before we go home, that there's a book. I love astrology. The one book, Sextrology. Remember, I had you guys read your birth date. Yes, like from that, I literally just went off and went to a new tangent with astrology and also sexuality as well. And what does he say here? Oh, he says facts. All right, babies. We're gonna go and say goodnight to everyone. Thank you guys for joining us and participating with this conversation. This is a conversation of mental health and depression, and maybe some other things as well dealing with mental health. Conversation that we're going to be dealing with all of our lives, but we talked about suicide in this episode. Angelique shared her experience. I just wanted to let everyone know that, yes, if you are having these thoughts, if you are at risk, if you know someone else who's at risk, please do not be afraid to call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800 273 8255. Please do not be afraid. And that again is the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. Like, please get help. Like, there's so many ways that we can help each other. And it just says the older I the more I seem to find astrology interesting and oddly accurate. Yes, I'm a Leo. And Rico says thanks for the chat. I'll do okay. Love you guys. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We'll see
Love
you
you so
next
much.
time.